And we're back.
I'm sorry we had to split part 2 into 2 sections, but we spent too much time on items and felt we should not bundle it with the conquest match.
Luckily, this is the fun section. We finally get to fight people.
Remember, combat consists of strategy and execution. Strategy consists of your plan of action and knowing when to attack.
Fighting, or execution as you called it, is all about having the skill to pull off your plan. I'll let Iron take care of the strategy talk. I find fighting to be much more engaging.
In that case, I would like to explain something so we're all on the same page. A standard conquest match can be segmented into 3 parts: early, middle, and late game. These parts are defined by time elapsed, items acquired, and teamwork performed.
Using Iron's definition, early game starts when the timer counts down to 0. The only items you'll have are the ones that you bought with your starting gold. That'll change soon. Early game is mainly about killing minions and trying to get more gold and EXP than the enemy. The only teamwork you'll see as Janus is tied to the jungler, if he or she is nearby.
Janus spends early game the same way as most other mages. He helps the duo laners kill a monster camp or 2 and begins defending the middle lane.
When battling the other mage over the minions, you'll want to use Unstable Vortex. If it's safe, stand in the middle of your minions, the easiest place to stand to land 2 double vortex. Otherwise, stand to the side, a less powerful but safer angle. While I'm talking about it, if you don't have any minions to stop the enemy minions, use a few basic attacks to bunch the melee minions together in order to hit them with both vortex. The range minions have less health anyways, so it's less important that you do full damage to them.
Before I forget, please refer to the screen for our recommended ability upgrade path. Both of us agree on this. Feel free to pause, otherwise we're going to save time and move on.
Anyways, early game gets fun when you reach level 5. You'll be able to unlock Through Space and Time, which gives you 3 fun options. If you manage to damage the enemy mid laner until they're limping, you can try to use it to finish them off. Otherwise, you'll be looking for an opportunity to fire your ultimate at the duo or solo lane for a gank. Be warned, your gank attempt will be highly telegraphed. You have to commit quickly or else you could be walking into a trap.
We should move on to middle game. In terms of time elapsed, middle game begins sometime between 8 and 12 minutes into a match. Most players will have finished their shoes and one other item and will begin acting based on which item they chose. Teamwork becomes more common, especially when towers start falling or have already fallen.
Most of the time you'll be coordinating with a jungler to set up kills. If that's not the case, your goal will be to take the enemy's tower, assuming you haven't already. Battling enemies from other lanes or surprise attacking other lanes yourself will become more and more common as the match continues.
Janus especially is adept at ganking. As Skills described, Through Space and Time is a powerful teamwork tool. You can use it to come to an ally's side to fight, save them by giving them a means of escape, or possibly damaging an enemy.
The farther into middle game you go, the less and less you will be by yourself. It's important to know how your abilities work with your allies' kits. There are way too many combinations for us to cover, but there are 2 easy ways for you to sync with an ally. Portal is great for setting up an ally's attack. It banishes the enemy, preventing them from running away, and sets up a moment of vulnerability for your ally to exploit. Unstable Vortex is good for being on the other side of a team attack. If an ally sets up an attack for you, try and take full advantage of it by landing a double vortex.
Last on the list is in-game. This can be one of the most active sections of the match, so we need to cover multiple subjects. By now, you should have 4 full items, and one of your main goals should be to acquire the last 2.
Especially since one of those items is likely brought up to Hootie.
Very true. You'll know if the in-game has begun if either the clock strikes between 20 and 22 minutes, or if your or your enemy's team starts making groups of 3 or more at all times. It will be common to see 4 enemies attacking the same god or objective. When both teams make large groups like this, you have what is called a team fight.
I heard the word fight. I'm taking over. Okay, so team fights can be very difficult, especially for Janus since mages have to sacrifice defense to maintain their high levels of power. This means Janus will need to either use Portal to set up a safe kill or wait for an ally to do so. Try not to overuse Portal, because if the fight stops being in your favor, you may need to use it to escape or to save an ally. Don't forget how big of a deal the portals from Through Space and Time are. Every ally can use each portal once, so you can enter the fight while a limping ally escapes. You might secure a kill with it, but something like 4 out of 5 times, your goal is to make lots of portals in the right place at the right time.
We should probably start wrapping up soon, so let's go over some tips and strategies. When fighting over objectives like Fire Giant or Gold Fury, the objectives are immune to the debuff provided by Threshold. Therefore, you should instead use it as a gate to warn your allies of a surprise attack. If you place it near the objective where enemies need to cross to attack, they will either accept the debuff so they can attack, but expose a moment of weakness, or wait until the threshold times out and give you a few extra seconds of safety.
Okay, I get what you're doing. I've got one. When attacking a tower, use Threshold to speed up your minions. The sooner they enter the tower zone, the sooner you can attack and the sooner you can get out of there.
Continuing the subject, here's a tip for Portal. If you are in danger but have allies nearby, sometimes it is better to portal yourself through the ground than it is to escape through a wall. You are immune to damage and crown control while banished, so you might avoid a dangerous ultimate from an enemy. If the enemy fell in with you, it might give an ally enough time to come to your rescue. It helps that the enemy was hurt and you were not.
For the last tip, I want to point out Portal's amazing chasing ability. If the enemy is trying to go around the corner, depending on your angle, you could suddenly jump way ahead of them. This might not only cut off their escape, but also line you up for a passive buffed Unstable Vortex. This tactic is even more powerful if you have Polynomicon. Try to be careful though. You could be walking into a trap. However, if only one Unstable Vortex is all you need, it's often worth it.
Let's give a quick summary and finish up. Janus starts early game the same way as most mages, battling over minions, trying to safely hurt the enemy, and waiting for his ultimate so he can go for the kill. Middle game is when he starts using through space and time to save allies or come to their aid if he can afford to leave middle lane. Late game he uses Unstable Vortex and Portal to team attack enemies and try to win team fights.
Threshold can be used to ward off enemies or make it easier to chase them down. It's also good for speeding up minions for taking down objectives. When using Portal, it's very important that you know how to use it. It can be used to save an ally, secure a kill, banish an enemy, or even steal an objective. However, the most important thing to remember is, be a team player.
Were we just on the same page?
I think we were. I liked it, but it felt weird. Let's not do that too often.
Agreed. Anyways, that's the end of our Janus guide. We covered his abilities, strengths, and weaknesses in part 1.
Items were covered in part 2.
And now we walked you through a conquest match as Janus. We've finished our sword, and it shall henceforth be known as Janus.
We hope you've enjoyed the commentary, and we'd love to see you again on our next god. Who should we cover?
I love mages, but we shouldn't be biased. Let's move on to another class.
How about guardians?
I don't think so. We should do physical gods before we come back to magical.
In that case, I vote warriors.
I like it. If we're voting, I vote we do Sun Wukong.
I love it. I second the motion. See you next time when we cover Sun Wukong.